David Pickering, who's our keynote speaker today. He's going to talk to us for about 10 minutes, and then there will be time for questions and answers. If you have any questions for David, please put them in the chat box. A couple of us will be looking at that and picking questions out. And after David's talk, we may ask you to unmute and ask your question to him directly. So I'll hand over to David. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Nikki. And thank you for giving me the honour of being here today and for inviting me to address you on what I think is your 16th and what I know is certainly your carbon lightest annual Supporters Day. Having handed over the baton as chair in 2010, I never forgot you and have been heartened to see Operation Noah continue to develop and shape campaigns, most recently Bright Now. And I value continuing to engage, and I'm really grateful to James Buchanan, the Bright Now campaign manager, who provided me and colleagues with invaluable support in the shaping and delivery of the URC's divestment resolution. This was received, debated and passed unanimously in May last year, and it led to the divestment from fossil fuel producing companies of £100 million roughly in the URC Central Trust and pension funds, and that was achieved by the beginning of December. This is the astonishing thing. 1 month later, nearly an additional £900 million of other funds were consequently divested, mostly by levering. You can ask me later if you want to know how. And likewise, I'm aware that many of you are working within your church to campaign for divestment from fossil fuel producing companies. Feel welcome to ask questions about the process that we followed. Now, that was very good news, but you know and I know there's no room for complacency. The climate crisis has not gone away, but this is a moment of opportunity to shape a green and just new normal. Like me, you may have a shopping list of policies to shape such a future, new approaches to energy, transport, buildings and other key sectors. That's another potential discussion topic, whether in question time or one of the chat room workshops coming up. But ahead of then, I'd like to take this opportunity to pause and reflect on some key principles that may help us in shaping the policy demands for such a new normal. And I found these principles expressed in the 3 couplets totaling 6 words that make up the Operation Noah strapline. And it's this: faith motivated, science informed, hope inspired. It was after a board meeting, I don't remember, 2005, 2006. I remember chatting with our then campaign director, Anne Pettifer, about the value of having a simple strapline to express the identity, approach and core values of Operation Noah, if possible, in an economy of words. My memory is that without a marketing executive in sight, the 2 of us went into her office and a handful of minutes shaped those words. But actually, it wasn't our insight or imagination. They truly felt God-given. And the next board meeting agreed, and Operation Noah, all these years on, still uses them. So in this Kairos moment, I'd like to reflect on those 3 couplets and ask if they may provide a foundational set of principles as Operation Noah works with allies to shape the path to a green and just new normal. First, faith motivated. Well, at its heart, Operation Noah is a faith campaign. It draws on core Christian values. Now, this is not the time, or rather there's not time for an extensive exploration of such values, but I note that we are bonded by the twin and interwoven imperatives of creation care and acting justly. Creation care, that the world and all it contains comes from the free loving actions of a creative God who delights and sees value in all life and form. The earth is ours to inhabit and enjoy, but not to own. And thus we may have something of a tenant relationship, subject to a full repairing lease. We are called to respect the integrity of all life forms and the ground of our being too. Our actions are not based on the belief that our actions are based on our belief that all life has value in God's eyes. It was good, it is good, rather than what's in it for humanity. And acting justly, well, the prophet Micah railed, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." And it was Jesus who brought another two couplets to us: love God, love neighbour. Bring them together, we have the imperative of a green and just new normal. But faith motivated is more than just belief. It's about our action too, how we walk the talk, how we live. Remember this: we follow in the steps of perhaps little people from different walks of life who, in addressing different issues, have taken giant leaps with God, achieving change in response to their love of God and neighbour. It is our heritage. It is our calling. We are faith motivated. And second, we are science informed. This year, we've lived through the greatest disruption to personal, community, national and global life that many of us have experienced. Many of us have seen heartache and tragedy which has abounded. And whilst lockdown is easing, one lesson is clear. In the face of a global issue such as the pandemic, applying sound scientific analysis and modelling saves lives. Tragically, the UK government initially failed to heed the lessons of overwhelmed hospitals and horrific mortality rates from the Wuhan district of China and parts of continental Europe, including Italy. Instead, the initial approach was based on a sizable proportion of a population developing so-called herd immunity. Now, whilst the UK mortality rate is tragically high, NHS meltdown and catastrophic loss of life was only averted by applying the lessons of science-informed modelling from Imperial College, which presented the government with a bleak assessment. And they belatedly, prodigally came to their senses, and in an unprecedented move allowed scientific insight and modelling to drive policy. We moved into lockdown, and countless lives have been saved. Whilst the UK finds itself in an uncomfortably high position in the National Death Toll League, looking over the Atlantic at either US or Brazil, the disastrous consequences of allowing the economy to trump evidential science is clear. In the face of a global crisis, where core scientific investigation, analysis, modelling and conclusions provide a clear picture of the future, should it reveal with stark differences in terms of life and well-being different options forward, science must again lead the decision-making. And the good news is that if we apply the same approach to climate change, science doesn't point to the economy shutting down, rather to be radically reshaped. Life can continue, and not just life, but life in true fullness. Right now, we might say the prodigal government or governments are in danger of making the same costly mistake as they did with COVID-19, squandering the opportunity for transformation by taking a somewhat business as usual approach, herd immunity approach, which you know and I know won't turn the tide of climate disasters. It will cost livelihoods and lives, and core consensus sound science points to a different path out of the mire. Allowing science to lead policy turned around the COVID-19 pandemic. It may yet turn around our path to climate disaster. We are science informed, and it must continue to drive our asks. And third, we are hope inspired. So what is hope? Well, hope is a combination of longing for an outcome with an action to achieve that outcome. Let me illustrate and pretend that I'm overweight, smoke, binge drink, dine at my last local fast food outlet, the one with the arches. You know, I didn't say that, did I? There are other fast food outlets are available. Don't exercise, and crucially, I hope to live to 90. You may smile. Core consensus science tells me that the odds are stacked against my hope. But with each change in my lifestyle, lose weight, quit smoking, moderate drinking, choose healthy food, sorry arches, take up the exercise, I increase my odds of achieving my hope to live to 90. Hope is inspired is a combination of longing for a green and just new normal, and with it, taking the actions necessary to reach that goal. That's what underpins Operation Noah: faith-motivated, science-informed, hope-inspired. 3 couplets, 6 words, sound principles to shape a green and just new normal. For a moment in time, planes were grounded, skies emptied, roads fell quiet, carbon emissions plummeted. Nature breathed deeply again. And many people stepped off the old normal treadmill and journeyed into lockdown living, lighter living. We proved that transformation is possible. We don't deny many have experienced testing times and being buffeted by forces. And we are still traveling through this semi-wilderness experience. Yet despite physical separation, many people have reconnected with one another, with life, and with God, and have felt a once-in-a-generation opportunity and calling to reset the course, to shape a new normal, that green and just new normal. It might be daunting, but we follow in the steps of saints of old. Think Moses, who led people out of their old exploitative normal in Egypt, through wilderness years like we're experiencing, during which disparate tribes bonded to community and God's presence, guidance and teaching were felt. It was on the cusp of the promised land, with a vision of a new normal before, overflowing with milk and honey, that Moses gave a new couplet: choose life. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to shape a green and just new normal. As people of the Ark, we may test our policy demands, what we think will meet that green and just new normal, on the principles in our strapline: faith-motivated, science-informed, hope-inspired. And in doing so, be led away from the carbon-soaked path to climate disaster, towards the green and just treasure that may be found at Noah's rainbow's end. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
But the URC's divestment resolution asked exactly that it was not just about moving out of fossil fuel stocks, but moving into sustainable stocks. And they actually also took it a bit further, because they also asked for engagement and then moving out of other carbon intensive stocks. For example, cement manufacture and some transport networks. So absolutely, Leonard. And the hope is that the URC divestment resolution will continue to shape the investment criteria of the fund managers, which, as I said, although we've got around the URC, around 100 million in the fund, it is now a fund of it was before the crash, around £1 billion. And I can tell you about that levering if that's helpful, but thank you, Leonard. Nikki, we can't hear you.
Sorry. We have another question also actually from a current board member, Daryl Hannah. Daryl, would you like to unmute yourself and ask David your question, please? Thank you. Okay,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, David. That was an excellent talk. I really enjoyed it. I was struck by your example of hope, which seemed to be very, if I may say so, anthropomorphic. Anthropomorph-centric, or whatever the term. It just seemed about us. And what part does God play in hope?
trying to illustrate in the hope example is our responsibility. And in saying that hope is both where we want to go, we also need something, we also need to do something about getting there. It's rather like, and I'll be facetious again, I hope to win £1 million on the lottery, but actually I'm not going to, because I'm a lottery ticket virgin, you see, so I'm not going to do that. In the same way, if this is our hope for a carbon-free, a just and green new normal, then we actually have to walk the talk. But you know, and I know, and I hope I acknowledged in the act that led to the shaping of the strapline, we don't do it alone. And when I gave that little reference theologically to things having value in God's sight, what I was trying to allude to there is, for example, you might have heard somebody say, well, we must save the Amazonian rainforest because it might have some cancer-curing drugs in it or something. And you might have heard, and it's a fine motivation, but actually we don't do it for that. That's the anthropomorphic what's in it for us. We do it because it has value in God's eyes. So it's about our action in response to the God who we worship, who sees value in the integrity of the whole of creation. Have I answered your sufficiently, Daryl? On my screen, you're sitting below somebody who I can't see, but it just says "Amazing Grace" above your name, Daryl. So you're well placed in my order. Clearly, grace is important, and without God's grace, we can't be who we are. And there is something about seeking in our whole theological approach to the climate crisis. There is something about seeking forgiveness, acknowledging mistakes, and looking to the grace of God, who gives us hope too. So thank you for expanding on that, Daryl.
Again, if you've got questions specifically for her, please do put them in the chat. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to check that you can see my screen all right. Perhaps, Nikki, if you can say yes, as I can't see you.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great. Thanks very much. And as Nikki said, I'm Bokani Tshidzu, and I am Bright Now's campaign officer. So I'm working at Operation Noah on the Bright Now campaign, which is our campaign to call on churches and other institutions, religious institutions, to divest or disinvest from fossil fuel companies, and yes, to invest in clean technologies as well. I'm going to provide you with an overview of some of the key developments we've had in the last year, and you can see them here, but I'll talk through them in more detail. As we did with David's talk as well, thank you for that, I will ask you to please add your questions in the chat box, and we will come back to them at the end of this brief presentation. Great, so let's start with the global divestment announcement that we had in September 2019. And this saw our collaboration with the global Catholic climate movement, and we had 22 faith institutions from across the world announce their decision to divest from fossil fuel companies in an announcement that we also coordinated with the Green Anglicans and Green Faith. This included several UK institutions, among them the United Reformed Church at a national level, thanks to David's support, and St. Mary's Episcopal Cathedral in Edinburgh, making it the first cathedral in the world to divest. In January, 20 Christian organizations in the UK took part in our Epiphany Declaration, which included local churches, Catholic dioceses, and religious orders, and the URC synods also announcing their divestment campaign commitments. In May, we published our new Bright Now report, and you can see the different sections here. We also held a webinar with guest speakers in June, in which we shared the key findings from the report and heard those guest speakers' responses. And this is now available on YouTube free to watch again, or on our Bright Now website, along with the full report, which is free to download. We received many quotes of support of the report from different church leaders, including Dr. Ron Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury. Also in May, we announced another global divestment announcement with several organizations. This was the largest ever joint announcement of divestment and saw 42 institutions from 14 countries, including 21 from the UK. These included the Catholic Diocese of Arundel and Brighton, the Jesuits in Britain, 3 United Reformed Church Synods, the Oasis Churches and Global Charity, and several local churches from different denominations. As you can see, this announcement was covered by The Telegraph, The New York Times, and the Vatican News website. Speaking of the Vatican, you may have also heard the exciting news recently, just last month, that the Vatican has now recommended that all Catholic institutions divest from fossil fuels. It's the first time that they've made this really explicit recommendation. And you can read more about this on our website. And it was also covered by Reuters, the financial news site. We have in recent weeks been supporting campaigners in the Methodist Church who have been calling for full divestment. Excuse me. The Central Finance Board of the Methodist Church announced their decision to divest from BP and Total in June, but continued investing in 4 oil companies, including Shell, Eni, Repsol, and Equinor. And in response, over 260 Methodists, including 114 ministers, signed a letter which was published in the Methodist Recorder, calling on the Central Finance Board to fully divest from the fossil fuel companies. At Methodist Conference, members voted to support an amended motion and referred the decision on divestment to Methodist Council. The motion was proposed by Martha Rand, a representative of Methodist Youth Assembly, and seconded by John Howard, who is the former chair of JACI, the Methodist Ethical Investment Advisory Group. We are looking forward to supporting these campaigners again as we look forward to the decision in October. Finally, we heard just last week that one of the Church of England's national investment funds, managed by CCLA, has dropped its investment in fossil fuels for financial reasons. So we mentioned already some of the volatility that oil share prices have seen in the last weeks. And CCLA's CFB funds sold their remaining shares in Shell and Total in recent months. This is especially significant because the CFB manages funds on behalf of many Church of England dioceses and local churches. And the last year has seen an increase in the number of fossil-free funds. So there are now more options to opt out in your investments, including the CCLA's Charities Ethical Investment Fund and Epworth's Climate Stewardship Fund, among many others. So looking ahead, here are some of the partners we have worked with in the last year and will continue to collaborate with. We're working with them especially on another global divestment announcement, this time in November this year. So watch this space for more information. We would love it, of course, if many of your churches would want to be involved. please don't hesitate to get in touch with myself and James. We will also be organising webinars for Catholic organisations on divestment, as well as on investment, so impact investing, which is investing for positive outcomes, both for society and the planet, with SEEK, the Catholic Impact Investing Collaborative. So I'll end there for now and invite James Buchanan, Campaign Manager of Bright Now here at Operation NOAA, to take some of our questions together.
Something that we then realised had much wider implications, and we're absolutely delighted when it was taken on by a bigger group. So I'm going to invite James Anthony to speak to us for a little while about Climate Sunday and tell us more about it. And again, if you've got questions for James, if you could put them in the chat box, there'll be an opportunity to ask him afterwards. Thank you very much, James.
Thank you for the invite, and good morning, everyone. I'm just going to hit share on my screen so that I can show you a few slides relating to Climate Sunday. There we go. So you should hopefully be able to see me and the slides. Does that work for everyone? Excellent. So yeah, I'm the project coordinator for Climate Sunday, and this is a project which has a really wide backing. CTBI's Environmental Issues Network are taking this forward, of which Operation NOAA is a key partner in. And you can see from this slide the number of Christian denominations and environmental charities who have given their formal backing to the Climate Sunday initiative. And I know there are many other denominations which are also working with us, but these are the formal backers of the project. What we are aiming to do with Climate Sunday is to create a real focal point in the lead up to COP26, which is next November in Glasgow. And what we, as Climate Sunday, will provide is resources for local churches to hold their own climate-focused service. And at that climate-focused service, we're calling on congregations to do one or more of these three things. Committing to take long-term action. And we're working very closely with the greening schemes, such as Eco Congregations Scotland, Ireland, Live Simply and EcoChurch. And really what our aim is that at the end of Climate Sunday, many more churches would be members of those greening schemes, and those that are members already would take the next steps towards achieving awards. We're also hoping to encourage churches to make a pledge. And this can be a simple pledge from removing, say, single-use plastic from church activities, up to something much more ambitious, such as undertaking an energy efficiency project for buildings or installing renewables. And of course, we will be featuring some of the Operation NOAA resources around finance, where churches are looking at divestment and reinvestment as well. And at the end of the period of local Climate Sundays, which is a one-year period starting this September, we will take the cumulative effect of all of those pledges, all of those local services, and use that to make a call to the UK government and to the COP26 conference to ask that they take bold action when they meet next November. So some of the key dates for Climate Sunday project. The first one is the 6th of September this year, and that's when the first Climate Sunday will be happening, and the URC has actually got that booked in already for the first Climate Sunday on that date. And there are 52 Sundays when churches can take part. We're going to finish on Sunday the 5th of September 21 with a National Climate Sunday based in Glasgow. in the run-up to COP26, where we present the actions of all the churches that have taken part and hopefully get real attention beyond the church world, and really bring focus to the action that needs to be taken at the conference. And then, of course, the conference itself happens in November. And in the weeks preceding that, we'll be taking all the pledges and campaigning alongside all the project partners to see COP26 be a real success. So that's just a very brief overview of